Hi there, welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm glad you're here. On this channel, we learn alcohol ink, watercolor, and other creative art projects together. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's get started. Hey friends, with Valentine's Day right around the corner, I thought we would paint 4 very easy Valentine's Day cards that you can create in just a few moments. I'll be using my Academy 100% cotton watercolor paper block, and this block is about 5 by 7. It has a slit on the edge there. You can see I can slide my letter opener in there and separate the sheets of paper. And I use a block because it helps with the buckling when you use a lot of water. So for this first card, I am going to draw a square. And you can put your square wherever you want on your paper. I chose to do mine on the top section of the paper. And I'm not really measuring anything. I'm just using the ruler to make sure I have straight lines. And then I'm going to draw different size hearts along the edge. And don't worry about your hearts being perfect. They don't have to be. Once you're happy with the amount of hearts you have around that edge, you can use your eraser to remove the line marks from the center of your hearts. And yes, I'm still working in my kitchen, so I apologize for the shaky camera. It's just too cold to go into my studio. And for those of you who don't know, my studio is in my basement and it's really cold down there. So I've been working in my kitchen. I'm using my Muño pan paints for today's video. And you can see here I am wetting down the first heart, and then I've activated my paints by spraying them with some water, and I'm just going to pick up random and different shades of pink and red, and I'm just going to drop a little bit of each color into the heart, and I'm going to let it blend gently into one another, and that creates a really pretty look. Makes it nice and soft. The colors blend together nicely. And I'm going to continue with that same technique for each of the hearts, wetting them down and then just dropping in different shades of red and pink. Once you've added all your hearts, make sure that you let it dry completely. For the next step, we're going to be using a chrome marker in gold. Now, if you don't have a chrome marker, you can just use metallic paint or whatever color paint you want to create a border. Okay, so my hearts are painted and they are almost dry. So I'm using a chrome marker in gold and I'm going to trace over that pencil line with the gold marker, making sure to skip around the hearts. And you can see there I went outside of the line, so I'm just going to add a little heart in gold, and I decided to add a few more around that border. And then I filled them in with the gold marker. You can add as many or as little as you like, and you don't even have to make your hearts red or pink. You can make them any color you like. It's your painting. Use whatever colors you like. Now, once everything was dry, I diluted some indigo, and I wanted to create a shadow on the side of that square and around the hearts also. So that's what you see me doing here. And indigo is a really strong color, so I made sure that it was very diluted. I just want a little bit of shadow. And I'm going around the hearts that are on the outside of that box. And then I wanted to widen the border that I created with the gold chrome marker. So that's what you see me doing here. I wanted it to stand out just a little bit more. And also to make it look like it was standing out from the paper. Then I used a fine liner. I believe this is a 03 to outline my hearts so that they would stand out a little more as well. Once I was finished outlining the hearts, I felt like I needed something more, so I started adding these tiny little hearts, and I just wanted an outline of the hearts. But you can see there that my paper was still wet from the shadow, and it started to run, so I decided to go with it. And I just used a clean, damp brush to soften the edges of those hearts. And even though I started this by a mistake, I love the way it turned out with those soft hearts around the edges and hollow on the inside and just the paint on the outside. Then I grabbed a marker with a brush tip and I added my little message in the center, and my calligraphy leaves a lot to be desired. But again, this doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be fun and cute, and I really was happy with the way this turned out. And it was really easy and quick. Okay, let's move on to number 2. For this next card, I took a piece of scrap paper and I folded it in half and I drew half of a heart, which I ended up not even using that outline. I just cut out a heart. You don't have to draw it first. It's pretty easy. Then I made sure that it fit on my paper, and I didn't want it centered. I wanted it off to the side. So I traced out my shape to make sure that the heart was even on both sides. This time it did matter. Usually it doesn't matter if the shape is perfect, but for this one it did. And I'm reactivating my paints by spraying them with a little bit of water, so I always have a spray bottle near because the paints will dry as you're painting. So I'm using a large brush and I'm wetting down the area inside of that heart that I drew. And just making sure to go over it and that the entire heart is wet. And now since I've activated my paints by spraying them with water, I can easily pick up the paint and drop it into that area that I pre-wet. And I'm going to use different colors for this, not just reds and pinks. And I love the way the paint is flowing on the wet paper. It's such a pretty effect. And if your paint isn't flowing the way you'd like it, you can always help it along by using your brush to move it around a little. And now I'm just sharpening up the edges a little with the very tip of my brush. Now that the heart is painted, I'm going to make sure my brush is really wet, and I'm going to pick up some of the colors that I used for the inside of the heart, and I'm just going to splatter. And you can see I'm getting paint all over my table, but it's not a big deal. It's easy to clean. I'm just going to splatter all over the paper, even outside of the heart, the inside of the heart, and I really like the way that looks. And of course, you can eliminate this step. You don't have to do this if you're happy with the way your heart looks. Once the painting was dry, or so I thought, I grabbed my gold chrome marker and I outlined the shape of the heart. And then I wanted to add a shadow on one side, but you can see here as I'm adding the water to the side so I can add the blue, the splatter started to activate, and I thought the painting was ruined, but I don't give up that easily. I just took some water and I put it all over the sheet of paper so it so softened up that splatter in some cases, and then I was able to take my diluted blue and add the shadow that I wanted. Once everything was dry, this time it was dry, I used a Micron pen fine liner and I outlined the inside of the heart. Then I used a pencil to add a couple of lines so I could write a little message inside the heart. And it's best to use the lines because you can try to space things better. If I tried to do this freehand, I would have been all over the place. So I kept the message pretty simple, and I love the way this one turned out as well. Very simple and very cute. On to the next one. So for this one, I started by creating a gold border around the edge of the paper. And I did have to go over it a few times to thicken it up. You can use gold paint for this if you don't have the markers, or you don't have to have a border at all. Then I used some very diluted pink and I wet down the entire sheet of paper with that pink. I just wanted to have a nice soft background. And then I added a little heavier consistency around the corners. And now I'm using a flat brush. And unfortunately, my paper was still too wet, but in the end it turned out fine. But I should have given it a minute or so to absorb the amount of water that I had placed on it. I did want these flowers to look very soft and kind of faded, but again, because the paper was so wet, it absorbed a lot. It spread the flower. You couldn't even tell it was a flower. It looked like a blob. But not a problem. I'm going to fix that, and you'll see in just a moment. You could see even the top right one spread too far. So here I've picked up a heavier consistency of the paint, and I'm just going to go over it until it stops spreading and it looks more like a flower. And you don't have to use a flat brush. You can use whatever brush you want. And now I'm picking up a little bit of green and I'm adding some leaves here and there. I'm using different shades of green so that it's more interesting. And then I'm going to fill in the empty spaces with either a flower or some extra leaves. And you can see now that my paper is drying, so it's not blooming out as much. And here I used a heavy consistency of yellow and orange to paint in the center of the flowers, and then I added a little bit of brown to the base of the center for a little depth. And now that everything is dry, I'm adding a few lines so I could write a message. And this was very, very simple. You don't have to be able to paint the perfect flower. All you're trying to create is the illusion of a flower, and it just looks so pretty, so soft, and so delicate. And here I am trying my best at calligraphy again. And it was, all in all, it doesn't look that bad. It could have been much worse. You don't have to write in cursive. You can just print the words. And don't forget to erase your lines once everything is done. And here are the first 3 cards. Now we're on to the last one. This one is going to be very, very simple. We're just going to use our round brush and we're going to paint some hearts. And again, these don't have to be perfect. They can be all different sizes, and I'm going to use lots of different colors, not just the red and the pink. But you can see I'm just drawing the outline and then cleaning my brush in some water, dabbing it on my paper towel, and using the tip of the brush to move that paint from the outline to the center of the heart. And I'm leaving some white spaces here and there. And I'm only doing these hearts on the top section of the paper. So you can see that I've added pink, red, orange, and yellow hearts. And now I'm going to let this dry completely. Now that it's completely dry, I'm going to add some more hearts in different colors. I'm going to be using blue, green, purple, whatever colors you like. Anything works. Okay, so I have added all the hearts that I want, and now that it is almost dry, I'm using a fine liner and I'm creating lines to attach to the heart. And they're going straight up, and you can see they're wiggly. They're not perfectly straight. They don't have to be. And I'm going to attach a string to each one of the hearts. Now that all the strings have been added, I'm adding a little bow to the top of each heart. And now I'm using a fine liner. This one is a 03, and I'm going to outline some of these hearts. I'm going to add a little bit of detail, some dots, some dashes, just to make them stand out a little bit more. So I'll continue adding little patterns around each one of the hearts and try to keep them as different as I can. And once I'm happy with what I have, I will add my little message at the bottom. Well, we are nearing the end of the video. I hope that you have enjoyed these really easy Valentine's Day cards and that you give them a try. Check the description box for links to the products used. And if you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. I'll always get back to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.